Hi, my name is Christy Thomas. I podcast under the name Keep Calm Mother On. That's the name of my show. I'm a positive discipline educator. I'm a mom to three, and I have a background in elementary and middle school education. I am here today for the first Lunch and Learn of the 2023-2024 school year. Once a month, either the third or fourth Monday at noon Eastern Standard Time, I will come on here and we can talk about the things that you are thinking about with your kids. For the first month, for August, we're going to talk about the fundamentals of empathy. Why do we need to talk about this? Three major things. But first of all, I want to give credit where credit is due. This talk is inspired by the book UnSelfie by Dr. Michele Borba. She has many books, but UnSelfie here and her book Thrivers, which came out after, you can see, are my favorites. The spine is broken on both of these books. And I've listened to them on audio as well, and they are also good. So if you're a busy parent on the go and you're not sure you have the time to sit down and read a book, the audiobooks work well here. Here's what I want to know about empathy. Why do we need to talk about this? There are three main points. One, empathy is on the decline. Teens now are 40% lower in empathy than they were 3 to 4 decades ago. And on the flip side of that is not just the decline of empathy, but the me culture. The me culture is leading to an increase in narcissism. Narcissism has increased by 58%. 58%. Number two, there's an increase in pure cruelty, but also just in cruelty around us as we watch the news with our kids. When empathy in a culture declines, okay, aggression and bullying rise. And we can see this in the adults around us. When this happens, when empathy goes down, but tormenting and bullying goes up, then the people who are the tormentors begin to see their victims as objects instead of being human beings like them. They've lost the ability to see them as we, and they feel completely separate. They see their victims as objects. That's not okay. We're not okay with this as parents. And number three, and this is going to be a big conversation, especially as technology starts to outpace us here and we don't know what to do. Cheating is on the rise. We've seen Hollywood stars buy test scores for their kids, right? For admission. Cheating is on the rise and a weaker moral reasoning. There are many possible reasons for this, but you only get to control what you can control, right? So let's talk about this with our kids. Let's remind them that they need a moral rudder to navigate the challenges of life. How are they going to respond? We know they're going to have hard situations. We know they are. So let's help them. Empathy will help them. If we hope to raise empathetic, curious, kind, compassionate kids who can thrive in the adversity of the planet they're being raised in right now, if I can continue to be a parent, you can be a parent that has optimism that our kids can do this and thrive and have successful adults, that they're going to need empathy. And that takes conversation from us, step-by-step teaching from us, and action. Empathy is not something that we're actually born with. We're born with some of the fundamentals of empathy, but there are step-by-step things that we can teach. And if we don't teach them, it's not going to be absorbed through osmosis. There's too much other noise that our kids are exposed to. And that noise has allowed narcissism to increase by 58%. We can tell our kids, we can expect them to be kind. You will be kind is a mantra in our house. We actually only have 3 rules. The first rule is that we're going to be safe. We're going to treat things safely. We're going to use objects safely. We're going to keep our bodies safe. Second is that we're going to be kind. Kindness towards objects, kindness towards people, kindness towards plants, kindness towards animals. We're going to be kind. And the third is once safety and kindness is squared away, we get to have so much fun and we get to be connected because parenting is too serious to be serious all the time. These things that I'm going to talk about how to teach your kids to be empathetic and then eventually how to thrive, they're just like little sprinkles all day long. It's not like having a boardroom meeting at your dinner table. We just want to throw it in there like confetti. We want to take little moments and think about it and say, you will be kind. That's what we do. So let's pause because I can feel myself riling up and feeling anxious about the fact that empathy is such a big concern for us right now. So if you could put your hands on your knees, and if you want to, you can put your palms up if you feel like you want to be open, or palms down if you feel like you need to ground inside yourself. And let's take a big breath in, pause, and a big breath out. Pause. Let's take another big breath in. Pause. And let's try to get a long exhale, like you're blowing out a candle. And while you're here breathing, with your eyes either closed or soft, I want you to think about your kids. I want you to think about if you think they are kind. How are you doing at this right now? And it's okay if you feel like this is a weak area in your family. It's just what it is right now. We can assess it and take a measure, a snapshot. So, are your kids kind in your house? Are they kind towards themselves? Are they kind towards you or their father or your partner? Are they kind? Are they kind toward their siblings? Are they kind towards their friends, your extended family? Are they kind at sports? Are they kind at clubs? Are they kind at church? Are they kind at the grocery store? Think about your kids in a whole view. You might notice that your kid is really kind at home when they feel regulated, but then not so kind if they're in an environment that they feel anxious in. Just take a note of that. So it's something that you know as their baseline. Okay. I'll give you another minute here to think about this. Think about each of your kids. And then I want you to think about you because they're watching you. They are catching how you are treating the drivers around you, the people you commute, how you answer your text messages, how you handle dinner phone calls. They want to see how your empathy and kindness is. Let's sit for a minute. Okay. Okay. And this is when I get to be honest. When I started thinking about this, about my oldest is about to turn 17. So I started really digging into this topic when she was about 2 to 3, right? When she started interacting more with peers, and I wasn't always sure if the toddlerness I was seeing, preschoolerness I was seeing, was how I wanted the path to go for her into the future. And I think every parent has that moment. So if you are feeling like a fish out of water here, like there are things here that feel murky because this is not exactly maybe how you were raised. Maybe you were born into a super competitive family. Maybe you have some baggage along with religion or other experiences in your life, and you're like, empathy is great, but okay, just hold on. Okay. I had to unlearn and learn a lot of things, to unlearn and then relearn. Okay. So you have this amazing ability. You can choose to learn something new again. You can approach this topic of empathy with a complete beginner's mindset. You can pause what you think empathy is and how to teach our kids this. And then you can just dabble at the things that will work for you. I think that I'm going to be constantly working on this my whole life. And I think that's normal too. I think that we set our kids up for emotional distress sometimes when we falsely let them assume that we have it figured out all the time. So it's good and healthy for you to model how to regain your empathy, how to struggle in a new situation. Okay. Number one, the foundations of empathy. There are 4 parts. 4. Okay, 4 parts to the foundations of empathy. The first is emotional literacy. Can your child recognize and understand feelings and needs of themselves and then of others? Emotional literacy. How many feelings can they actually name? We're going to talk about this later. Number 2, moral identity. Does your child adopt values that align with themselves? Do they know about integrity and how to activate empathy, right? When they see something wrong, do they keep walking or do they know how to respond? Number 3, perspective taking. Can your child step into the shoes and understand that person's thoughts, feelings, and needs? Of course, I don't get this right all the time, and I know my kids won't either, but it's important to practice over and over and over. This is one of those lifetime skills. And the more people I meet, the more shoes I get to try on, and it's amazing. Where I grew up was a really homogenous community. So the more I move around the community and meet people that aren't like me, it's amazing to try on those shoes and to learn about their experiences. Number 4, a moral imagination. Can your child use books, pictures, videos, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok? Can they use those emotionally charged images and films and shorts to guide them as a source of inspiration to feel and to take action? Okay, those are the 4 foundations of building empathy: emotional literacy, moral identity, perspective taking, and having a moral imagination. These are simple things that you can do. I'm going to quickly roll through those 4 topics again and give you a little action step for each one. And then next time at Lunch and Learn, we can talk about which ones you tried. You can email me, you can leave comments here on YouTube, and you can just practice little by little. Like I said, we kind of want it to be like confetti thrown up, right? Just little sprinkles of action throughout the day over a lifetime build a lot of empathy. We don't want to have hours-long board meeting with our kids about this is the definition of empathy and this is what I expect. That doesn't feel good. So if it doesn't feel good to you to sit in those situations, that's not how we want to teach our kids here. So step one, emotional literacy. We are actually wired to detect emotions from birth. So while babies, we think, are just eating and crying and soiling diapers, right? They are actually detecting emotions too. So your tone of how you talk to a baby makes a big difference. Every time you nurture a baby, you're actually like changing how the parts of the brain grow so that they will be able to handle stress differently as a grown-up. And while your baby is in that first 12 weeks of life, the parent's brain is actually changing too about how to change the baby. And it changes for every single child you have. So emotional literacy is something we are wired for from birth. But here's where it gets tricky. The United States and some Western cultures are low nurture cultures. Because we're so focused on doing, sometimes we confuse feelings with verbs. So here's where I'm going to challenge you. I want you to get comfortable labeling feelings instead of verbs. Like, I wasn't so lucky, right? I was feeling optimistic and excited. There's a difference there. So let's talk more about feelings. And there's an important gender bias here that you need to know about. If you are parenting a son, you will probably use emotional words less than you will parenting a girl. So if you are parenting a son, it's extra important to be comfortable with feeling words and teach them the feeling words. Girls by age 3 know a lot more feeling words than boys by age 3. So a little bit of intention can go a long way here. There are some great feeling wheels, and I will link them in the PDF that I will email to anyone who registered for this. If you're watching this as a replay, just let me know that you want this and we will connect. The next thing we need to know about is unplugged time versus gaming. So if we are so busy using our devices, we might be numbing and not be able to express our feelings. There's a study that was recently done that I watched on the Healthy Gamers channel, Healthy Gamer GG on YouTube. He was talking about how gamers have a harder time labeling their feelings. That video games, and probably other things, but he was mentioning video games specifically, aren't designed for feelings. They're designed for action. So if you're playing a lot of games, if your kid is playing a lot of games, that's just something to notice so you have other time to practice feelings. So secure some offline time as a family. Another action step for practicing emotional literacy is the dribble it in at family dinner. Eat together. Talk about how you felt during the day. Find a rose, a thorn, and a bud. So something you loved during the day, something that was uncomfortable, the thorn, and then bud is something you're hopeful for. Another idea is to play charades with all those feeling words that you might be uncomfortable using. Practice. What does it look like? Sit in front of the mirror with your kids. Take selfies if you have older kids. Trade back and forth. Have them model what your face looks like. My kids are really good at reading the emotions on my face. So give them the opportunity to help you learn feeling words too. while you're teaching them to then. So that's the first foundation, emotional literacy, and we are wired for it, but it takes practice. The second foundational piece is the moral identity. Our kids must be taught to value each other's feelings, needs, and ideas. We don't always have to agree with them, but we need to value them because we value the human that's having those experiences. We value humanity. An important note here is that the society, this gold star society, is also leading to diminished empathy. Over praising can lead to competition, which is an us, a me versus you competition, and then it lowers empathy in general. A key idea here is to read stories and to talk about stories and have your child imagine themselves as a caring person. If your child can imagine themselves and role play being a caring person, they are more likely to care about others when it's time to take action. Another favorite step here about building a moral identity is bring it up at family dinners or have a family meeting during a family dinner and talk about who you are as a family. Like, this is what the Thomases do. The Thomases step in. The Thomases stand up for other people. When we see a need, we don't ignore it. We find a way to advocate and help. I expect my kids to be kind. And if advocating doesn't mean stepping up in the moment, it means finding a responsible person who can help. Not every situation is safe for a kid to step up into. So we find ways for them to share what needs to be shared. But Thomases step in. That's what we've decided. So that's what we do as a family. We volunteer together. We talk about this together. We're developing a moral identity of what it means to be us. That's the second foundation. The third one is perspective taking. So this is literally where, right, we want our kids to practice stepping into someone else's shoes. And maybe your kids are growing up in a very diverse environment. That is not how I was raised. And that's okay, because as I've grown up, I have expanded my environment to include a lot of diversity where I can practice leaning in and hearing other people's stories and learning about them. So for perspective taking, there are two things you can practice with, right? So when there's a conflict in your home, that can be a time to practice perspective taking. You can ask your kids to notice people's faces, like freeze. What did you just say? Look at how dad's face is responding to that. Think if that's how you want him to know what you're thinking. Or you can role play where there's a situation where they pretend to be you and you pretend to be them. And then they have to think about things a little bit differently. You can even actually like dress up in each other's clothes or have siblings dress up in each other's clothes or try on their shoes. Props help here. And you can give it a chance to give them a chance. You can give them a chance to just do it over. Sometimes that helps too. You can be like, hey, buddy, that doesn't sound like you. Can you try that again? You can give them the gift of perspective by knowing that they have it and helping them find it. There's another formula here that Dr. Borba teaches in UnSelfie, and it's the feels and need formula. So when you are at a park and you see a kid fall down, or if you're watching a family TV show together, that kind of ties in with the next one, or just hanging out as a family and someone's having some feelings, you can ask your kid, hey, what do you think that person's feeling? what do you think that person's feeling? And then after they answer, you can say, well, what do you think they need? You can listen, and you don't like shut down anything that they say. Like, you just listen, and then you give them the chance to help. Is there something you can do? We want to empower our kids into action. So, what do you think he feels? What do you think he needs? And is there something you can do? Those actions, those questions really help flip the perspective and build empathy. There is a book that I found recently, a picture book. If your kid is having a hard time finding what other people feel and need, then they might need to practice what they need. And there's this book by Gabby Garcia I found in this workbook on her website called Sometimes I Need. And I highly recommend downloading this discussion packet about what you feel, what you need, and if you're getting those needs met. She talks about physical needs. She talks about emotional needs. But it's really, really helpful, especially the need to belong, the need to contribute, the need to express yourself, and the need to play are part of the emotional needs, okay? So take the time, maybe finding a book like this and working through worksheets or just talking about it will help your kids be able to then try on someone else's shoes. We know that this is a big part of why we love movies and books, which is the fourth foundation here. Emotional literacy, taking time to connect our feelings that we can practice in the emotional literacy, and then practice our moral identity. If this movie and book going how we want it to go, right? And then the moral imagination allows us to connect with stories, films, art, and ourselves. And we want to expose our kids to high quality literature, high quality books. Maybe read a book and then compare and contrast the movie. Did the director see the book the same way you did? We can use other people's lived experiences and other people's imagination to help our kids try on things that hopefully they never experience in life. Like, my kids have read Long Walk to Water. They've read books about World War II and concentration camps. They've read books about tornadoes and surviving earthquakes. These are hopefully things my kids won't experience in their own life, but it can help them build their empathy. So please join me in an empathy revolution. And during this next Lunch and Learn, we're going to talk about the next things that your kids can do to build empathy. But right now, let's start with these foundational four: emotional literacy, moral identity, perspective taking, and moral imagination. What would you do if? Well, like I said at the beginning, my name is Christy Thomas. I podcast with Keep Calm and Mother On. I coach, I teach positive discipline classes, and I am here because I think motherhood is too fragile to do alone. Parenthood is too fragile to do alone. You are exactly the right mom for your kids. You are exactly the right dad for your kids. And parenthood doesn't, even though it's so serious, doesn't have to be serious all the time. So keep learning, keep growing, and let's keep calm and mother on together. I'm so glad that you are here on Earth. Thank you for joining me at this first Lunch and Learn, and I can't wait to see you in September. Bye, everyone.